Imagine handing an AI nothing but the list of papers a study cited, and asking it to guess the discovery those references were building toward. That is the Reconstruction benchmark posted to AR14 this month, and frontier models are struggling with it badly. The paper itself stays hidden, so the model cannot have memorized the answer. It has to reason from what the prior work quietly implies. Individual models recover the core idea only 3 to 15% of the time. Let us unpack what that gap tells us about real scientific reasoning. First, let us see why this test is so different from the benchmarks we usually cheer about. Most benchmarks we celebrate reward recall. A model answers exam questions, retrieves a fact, or reproduces a proof that already lives somewhere in its training data. Score well and it looks brilliant, but the knowledge was sitting right there to be pattern matched. Nothing forces the model to invent something the literature had not yet stated. That is the comfortable ground where today's systems shine. Reconstruction moves the goalposts entirely. Here the model gets only a bibliography, and the paper that cited those references stays withheld. To succeed, it must make the creative leap from existing work to a genuinely new hypothesis, the exact leap the original authors supplied. There is no stored answer to recall, only reasoning to perform, which is why scores collapse from near perfect down to single digits. So how does the benchmark actually run? Follow one paper through it step by step. Researchers take a real paper published after a model's training cutoff, then strip everything away except its reference list. The model receives just that bibliography, the works the study cited. Because the paper appeared after the cutoff, it cannot be sitting in the training data, so the model has nothing to memorize and must work from the references alone. Given only those citations, the model proposes the core research idea it believes the paper introduced. A bibliography gestures at a problem space, but connecting that prior work into one specific new hypothesis is genuine creative reasoning. This is where the benchmark asks the model to behave like a scientist rather than a search engine, and generate the missing insight itself. Once a proposal exists, it gets matched against the actual idea the hidden paper put forward. Evaluators check whether the model's hypothesis really captures what the authors discovered, rather than a vague neighboring theme. A close match counts as a recovery, a miss does not, and this comparison is what turns a fuzzy guess into a hard number. Finally, the gap becomes a score across 643 papers spanning 6 scientific domains, tested on 7 frontier models. Individual systems land between 3 and 15%, recovering only a sliver of the original ideas. A multi-agent pipeline running a Swiss-style tournament pushed that to roughly 23 to 42%. Better yet, still leaving most discoveries unrecovered. Strip it back, and 3 ideas make Reconstruction worth your attention. This test is blind by design. Withholding the paper and using work published after the training cutoff removes the possibility of memorization, so a high score cannot come from having already read the answer. What remains is pure inference from the prior literature, which is exactly the capability the benchmark wants to isolate and measure honestly. Frontier models reveal a real weakness here. Recovering 3 to 15% of core ideas means the strongest systems miss the vast majority of genuine hypotheses, even when handed the same references the authors used. Impressive recall on other benchmarks simply does not translate into inventing the insight that a bibliography merely hints at. Structure helps, but only so far. The multi-agent tournament that reached 23 to 42% shows that orchestrating models to debate and rank competing hypotheses beats a single pass by roughly 2.5 times. Even so, more than half the discoveries stay out of reach, so better scaffolding narrows the gap without closing it. Alright, let us lock in what Reconstruction teaches us. Reconstruction is a 2026 blind benchmark that hands a model only a paper's bibliography and asks it to recover the core research idea the hidden paper introduced. Because the target paper is withheld and published after the training cutoff, a good score demands real hypothesis generation, not memorized recall from the training data. Individual frontier systems recover just 3 to 15% across the 643 papers tested, exposing how weak genuine scientific idea generation still is. Remember that a multi-agent tournament roughly doubled the recovery rate, so smarter orchestration helps even when raw models fall short. If watching AI research get broken down this plainly is your kind of thing, come explore the rest of what we have waiting at standarity.com.